Yo, what is going on? I'm back with another first impressions video. It is going to be on my Xten hard and balance pads that I received from Lethal. Thank you so much for sending both of these pads out for review. This is just after a short 2-day period with both pads. Just as a quick get it out of the way, I like the hard pad a lot more than the balance, but I will say why, and it is all based off of my personal preference. I feel like the balance pad has a place in games, although I feel like specifically for the games that I play, it's just not a very beneficial pad. Talking about my favorite out of the two, the hard, the reason I like this one so much is there's very light initial friction, and because of the size, making movements like this where you have to constantly track one target and it immediately switches to another, it's gonna just be a lot easier because there's less stopping power than there is on the balance, and it's not a heavy pad. I feel like there's a lot of room that you can just move your mouse around like perfectly fine. The other thing too is size is obviously going to be the biggest hindrance with this pad, mainly because you have to be able to wrist aim. You can't really arm aim on this pad whatsoever. You can see how small it is within. This is a small, by the way. This is not a medium Final mouse either. So the fact that it's a small and you can see how tiny this pad is going to be the biggest downfall to this pad. Another thing with both of these pads, I'm not going to be talking about price at all because I don't feel comfortable telling people what they should and shouldn't do with their money. I feel like that should be a given, but when I do get questions asking, what do I think of bang for buck, price per performance, I genuinely just don't care. If I think a mouse or a pad is really good, I don't care about the price as long as it works for me. But getting that out of the way, this pad has tons of maneuverability, especially for games that I am playing like Overwatch, where it's very, very track heavy and you're constantly just target switching like this, especially for flicks and for tracking. It makes it much easier because of the light initial friction. That is actually the biggest downfall for me for the balance is going to be the stopping power, which is very weird for me to say. Talking about the balance pad and the reason I don't like this pad specifically, the biggest thing is the stopping power, like I said. So if I am wrist aiming like this and I have to quickly switch between targets, it feels so heavy and there's a lot of fatigue that comes in if you play for anywhere for 3 to more hours. For me, I just feel like there's a lot of fatigue when I have to constantly move like this, and it comes to a dead stop. And when you don't have a lot of room to move your arm as opposed to only moving your wrist like this, it just causes too much fatigue for me to the point where it's just very irritating to deal with. And I would just rather not do that, which is why I like the hard. Because of the lack of stopping power, I have no fatigue when moving my wrist like this. Although the one amazing thing about the balance pad is these edges right here. I wish all of the Xten pads actually had this because it's so nice. It is slightly but not very noticeably below the surface, and it just feels very good. The hard pad, because the surface is so tough, not like Cordura, it feels like a hard Cordura pad, if that makes any sense whatsoever. Any kind of upward movement with my forearm, it does actually cause irritation and scrapes against my forearm, which isn't a huge deal. I kind of just play all the way back here now. Normally I have my forearm on the pad, but because of that issue, I put my forearm all the way at the edge over here. But if it had these beautiful edges around here, it wouldn't be an issue at all. And I do wish their control pad also had these edges. They look amazing. The other thing too is these bases. These are all using the same base and they feel amazing. They're even soft to the touch, which is actually a very weird thing that I noticed, but they don't move. They do not move at all. They're just as good, if not a little bit better than Artisan bases, which is really surprising. But yeah, that pretty much is all for my video. It's actually very difficult to talk about these two pads, mainly because I've only had 2 days, like I said. It's a very short initial impressions. I wasn't too impressed. I was honestly more let down by the balance pad, but I do just have to give it more time and more effort. The hard pad, however, I really like. Although, again, it is all personal preference, and I do just happen to like speed pads a lot more. Although my next video is actually going to be fully reviewing the MPC 450, the best Cordura pad, in my opinion, that still exists. But yeah, that's pretty much all for my video, and I hope to see you on the next one. Peace.